nde to lobela nde do émission to lobela nde to na film pour na kobeta bato bazoyo kate to na film pour na kobeta bato so ba désordre donc film boye yango to bi to lobela nde do émission to lobela nde to na film pour na kobeta bato bazoyo kate siko yo film boye balobi to zongle sur film pour na kobeta parce que to moni bato bazoyo ka lisuste ba désordre koti makasi balobi mobule koti na mboka bazoyo ka lisuste donc yango to bi film boye zongle sur pour na kobeta bato so ba koti désordre.
Congolais, unis par le sang, unis dans le fort pour l'indépendance. Dressons nos fronts, longtemps groupés, et pour de bon, prenons le plus bel élan dans la paix au peuple ardent. Par le l'hymne sacré de votre solidarité, fièrement saluer l'emblème d'or de votre souveraineté. Congo, don béni, Congo, des aïeux, Congo, au pays, Congo, bien-aimé, nous peuplerons ton sol et nous assurerons ta grandeur. 30 juin au doux soleil, 30 juin du 30 juin, jour sacré soit le témoin, jour sacré de l'immortel, serment de liberté, que nous léguons à notre postérité pour toujours.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Her Excellency, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Francophonie of the Democratic Republic of Congo, His Excellency Therese Wagner, just finished the meeting of the Security Council, and she's ready to make a presentation and receive questions from you. Your Excellency, you have the floor.
So I was supposed to say good afternoon, but it's good evening. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, today I address the UN Security Council on the grave situation in the Democratic Republic of the Congo for the second time in 48 hours. We are at a critical juncture, and I felt it was my duty to reiterate on behalf of the government and the people of the DRC the urgent need for decisive action by the Council. I welcome the fact that the Council has recognized Rwanda's responsibility for the violation of our sovereignty and our territorial integrity, as well as the violence currently unfolding in Goma. However, words have not been enough to end the human suffering and the aggression and onslaught on Goma. It is now time for the Security Council to act. Millions have been displaced, thousands are trapped in the besieged city of Goma with restricted access to food, water, electricity, security. Countless lives have been lost. Enough is enough. Rwanda cannot be allowed to continue to act with impunity, and I therefore called on the Council to act in defense of the principles of multilateralism and international law. The DRC welcomes the decision by Germany, not a Council member, to cancel its planned meetings next month on development aid with Rwanda and to urge Rwanda and the M23 to withdraw their troops. This is an example of the kind of action that we are calling for the rest of the international community to take, whether they are Council members or not. The Security Council should take note. They cannot remain silent or inactive any longer. As I stated in the Security Council today, we demand 5 immediate actions, very actionable and very precise. Firstly, the unconditional withdrawal of Rwandan troops from sovereign Congolese territory. There is no path to sustainable, peaceful resolution without this crucial step. Secondly, it is imperative that the Council introduces sanctions targeting the command structure of the Rwandan Defense Forces to undermine its ability to wage war against the DRC and its people. Thirdly, the introduction of an embargo on Rwanda's illicit exploitation and exportation of mineral resources in the DRC will stem the financing of this aggression. As a reminder, the United Nations Group of Experts report, the last one, indicated that over 150 tons were illegally mined on a monthly basis and exported by Rwanda under the label of Rwandan minerals. Thank you. Fourthly, we are calling for the suspension of Rwanda as a contributor of troops to UN peacekeeping missions. We need to end the double standard, where Rwanda is able to contribute to UN peacekeeping forces while its troops kill members of the MONUSCO mission and the SADC mission. In less than 4 days, over 14 peacekeepers were killed, and this in absolute impunity. Finally, there must be total transparency in arms transfers to Rwanda in order to stem its ability to stoke further violence. This aggression is not only a threat to the DRC, but also to the entire region and the principles enshrined in the UN Charter. It is time for the United Nations Security Council to act decisively and send a clear message that Rwanda's aggression and impunity will not be tolerated. As I said to the Council, the rules of multilateralism apply to us all. There is no Rwandan exceptionalism. Thank you.
Yes. Minister Stefano Vaccara, La Voce New York, Ital Press. We heard what the Security Council, they did a lot of speeches about which of the P5, which one is not doing and didn't satisfy you or what you expected, and why the Security Council is still not doing what you expected the Security Council to do.
We took note of the statements made by all the members of the Council, P5 and non-permanent members. We also know that there are these public statements, but right now the Council is also meeting behind closed doors. And so what counts for us, most importantly, is the outcome of those deliberations. It is important, of course, to hear permanent members and non-permanent members be very explicit. We noted a change in tone in some of the speeches that we heard today compared to 2 days ago. We welcome it. Of course, we deplore the fact that it had to come to at the cost of more human lives. And what we are focusing on right now is the result of the deliberations of the Council.
Just a quick follow-up is for the public that listen to you. Can you tell us what, for example, what member improved in the speech? Can you do some specific here?
I don't have a full...
Who is making, who is making things slowly? Who should hurry up?
Well, I think watching the deliberations once more should be indicative enough. I think the reports that we have from the ground, the very compelling brief that was given by the DSRG, Vivian van der Perre, gave us a good impression of the realities everyone is facing. And so I would rather invite those with this very specific curiosity to themselves analyze what the different members of the Council said. And I think this is also the important thing, the fact that everything is documented and history will be able to hold everyone accountable for their words or their silence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister. Lenka White from Russian RIA Novosti. If I can ask, please, have you tried to get in touch here or outside with the United States or Russia for additional help with the situation? Thank you.
We have strong bilateral ties with nearly all members of the Security Council. When it comes to the permanent members, we have direct contacts and we have diplomatic representations in all of them. So I can reassure you that interactions have always happened, that we have always relayed our messages, and that we have always advocated for a strong stance of these countries that we all consider partners in the United Nations Security Council. So we engage with all stakeholders. Of course, we engage with the UN permanent, the permanent members of the Security Council with a more robust stance, because they do have a privileged position of being permanent members of the Council, and that comes with specific responsibilities. And we do engage robustly with them to remind them of that. And we do it with all of them. Thank you.
During your stay here, right?
Of course, we engage with everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
Let's make this way.
Thank you, merci monsieur. Madame la ministre, bonsoir, Karine Autonne de Radio France Internationale.
Bonsoir.
Je rebondis sur la question de mon collègue italien, puisque vous avez bien souligné ces 2 derniers conseils, comment le Conseil était gelé, qu'il était silencieux. Est-ce que, à votre avis, le Conseil est gelé parce qu'il attend que l'Union africaine se positionne plus clairement? Et vous, de votre côté, comment pensez-vous pouvoir convaincre les ambassadeurs A3+1 de mieux défendre le droit international sur le continent africain?
Alors, il y a une relation évidemment de subsidiarité entre les organisations comme l'Union africaine et les Nations unies. Donc, nous tenons compte de cela, mais en même temps, quand nous venons parler au Conseil de sécurité, nous le faisons parce qu'il s'agit de paix et de sécurité internationale. Je l'ai dit pendant mon discours, nous sommes très clairs là-dessus. Il n'y a pas de solutions africaines qui ont pour résultat de rester inactifs, de rester passifs et de ne pas réagir quand des femmes, des enfants sont tués et sont martyrisés. Et donc notre message, il est le même au niveau de l'Union africaine et au niveau du Conseil de sécurité. Nous attendons des actions fermes qui sont aussi à la hauteur des ambitions que chacune de ces organisations se sont données et chacun de ses membres a la responsabilité de réaliser et de respecter.
Quitter New York, est-ce que vous allez revoir les ambassadeurs, les représentants des 3 membres africains du Conseil, la Somalie, l'Algérie, le Sierra Leone et aussi le Guyana?
Alors, ce sont des échanges qui sont continus. Je suis ministre, donc je ne suis pas ici de manière permanente. Évidemment, nous avons une mission permanente qui a toujours des contacts très rapprochés avec tous les membres du Conseil de sécurité, y compris les A3+. Et donc, cet effort et ce travail va toujours continuer. Il n'est pas plus pressant ou plus tangible ou palpable quand je suis là. Il se fait toujours et il se fait avec abnégation et dédication justement dans l'effort de mobiliser plus de voix pour avoir des actions concrètes. Donc le travail va continuer.
Foreign Minister, if I may.
C'est la dernière.
You've come with a long list, Sherwin Rice, South African Broadcasting, you've come with a long list of demands in terms of action from this council, but you might be well aware that this council is notorious for inaction, so I wonder if you might not be better off finding solutions elsewhere. You know, there was a ministerial meeting which you participated in at the African Union, the Peace and Security Council today. Tomorrow the EAC will meet at heads of state, I understand. Is that perhaps not the best game in town given the inaction this council is notorious for?
So, first of all, I don't think that I came with a long list. I think we could work on an even longer list. I came with 5 asks, very low-hanging fruits. So I think we were very reasonable and we were very constructive. I think if we wanted to obstruct and if we wanted to disrupt the work of the council, we could have come with a different list. But we have come with a list built on the results of the last report of the group of experts, not reports issued by the Congolese government, but with a direct link with what the group of experts has identified: natural resources, violation of territorial integrity, violation of no attacks or of not attacking peacekeepers. Also, the illicit exploitation of natural resources and the transparency in arms transfer. These are measures that the Security Council has used in many other occasions. We are from the DRC. We have been under a sanctions regime, so I know what I'm talking about. These are low-hanging fruits. It is not a long list. And we will not tire of holding every entity we are a member of accountable in terms of its responsibilities.
Your expectations of the EAC and the AU?
We have expectations with all these organizations because each of these organizations has values and principles and must uphold them and hold its members accountable when they fail to do so. Okay, dernière, s'il vous plaît.
Madame, dimanche, vous demandiez, entre autres, des sanctions ciblées à l'endroit de Kigali. Ce mardi, l'Allemagne a pris une décision conditionnant son aide au développement au retrait des troupes rwandaises et du M23 du territoire national. Considérez-vous cette action allemande comme un pas décisif pouvant inciter les autres capitales à agir de manière ferme contre le Rwanda?
En tout cas, c'est une décision que nous saluons et que nous avons reçue avec satisfaction parce que justement, c'est une décision qui nous montre que des pays, membres ou non membres du Conseil de sécurité, peuvent prendre des actions très concrètes, peuvent prendre des actions en fonction de leurs relations et des outils dont ils disposent. Et nous espérons sincèrement que cette action courageuse va aussi motiver tous les pays membres de la communauté internationale, qu'ils soient au Conseil de sécurité, qu'ils soient au niveau de l'Union africaine ou dans d'autres organisations, à justement réfléchir sur ce qu'ils peuvent faire pour mettre fin à ce drame qui a duré bien trop longtemps. Donc nous saluons cette initiative, mais nous ne pensons pas qu'elle devrait être isolée, nous pensons qu'elle devrait être l'inspiration d'autres initiatives robustes et informées par les capacités et les mécanismes dont chaque pays et chaque organisation dispose pour justement s'assurer que le droit international soit respecté en République démocratique du Congo, mais à travers le monde aussi. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
You can now take more questions. Sorry for that.
Merci, monsieur l'ambassadeur. À bientôt.
Congolaises, Congolais, mes très chers compatriotes, je m'adresse solennellement à vous en ce jour dans un contexte exceptionnel en rapport avec la situation sécuritaire que connaît notre pays dans sa partie orientale. Ce contexte d'agression et d'occupation des territoires dans le Nord Kivu est perpétré par le groupe terroriste dit du M23 avec l'appui avéré en hommes et en logistique du Rwanda. Au moment où je fais cette adresse, nos agresseurs occupent certaines localités dans le territoire de Rutshuru, occasionnant ainsi un drame humanitaire avec plus de 200 000 compatriotes forcés de fuir les affres terroristes dans les zones de combat. Ils se retrouvent en dehors de chez eux, sans logis, sans nourriture et sans soins. Des instructions précises ont été données au gouvernement pour leur rassemblement et leur prise en charge. Au-delà de ces efforts, j'en appelle à un élan général de solidarité pour alléger leur fardeau. Certes, cette situation n'est pas nouvelle. En effet, depuis plusieurs décennies, des groupes armés nationaux et étrangers écument l'est de notre pays en y commettant des atrocités innombrables sur fond d'exploitation illégale de nos ressources naturelles. C'est ainsi qu'à l'occasion de mon avènement, j'avais été amené à prendre l'engagement devant la nation de rétablir au cours de mon mandat la paix et la sécurité là où elles sont compromises et de les consolider là où elles existent. Sitôt dit, sitôt fait, j'ai sans délai et de bonne foi commencé à développer, notamment avec tous nos 9 pays voisins, une diplomatie de proximité en vue d'établir avec eux des relations de coopération franches, transparentes et de caractère gagnant-gagnant. Avec l'Ouganda, par exemple, nous sommes allés jusqu'à décider de mutualiser nos forces armées afin de combattre ensemble la nébuleuse des ADF, une milice d'origine ougandaise qui cependant n'opère que dans le Nord Kivu. Et aussi, nous avons lancé 2 projets de construction de routes transnationales. Avec le Rwanda, un mémorandum d'entente a été signé dans le commerce de l'or avec une entreprise nationale. Une ligne aérienne a été ouverte à la compagnie nationale rwandaise dans notre pays et un accord de non-double taxation a été signé. Malgré cela, ce pays va nous surprendre en réactivant les terroristes du M23. Alors qu'il avait été défait par les armes en 2013, le M23 va refaire surface en prenant notre armée à court, notamment à Bunagana, cité qu'il occupe depuis le 13 juin 2022. En effet, sous la fallacieuse accusation de soutien des FRDC au FDLR, le Rwanda a en réalité des velléités expansionnistes, avec comme intérêt principal l'appropriation de nos minerais, et pour ce faire, il s'active à déstabiliser l'Est du Congo pour créer une zone de non-droit en vue d'assouvir ses appétits criminels. Pour faire face à cette situation, 2 options s'offraient à nous, la diplomatie ou la guerre. J'ai résolu de privilégier la première option, quitte à en venir à la seconde, faute de résultats. L'option diplomatique a donc été mise en œuvre. C'est ici l'occasion pour nous de rappeler que notre attachement à la recherche de la paix par des voies pacifiques n'est aucunement un signe de faiblesse, moins encore un aveu d'une incapacité de notre pays à s'inscrire dans une logique de guerre totale contre tous ceux qui continuent à abuser de notre patience, mais plutôt une expression de notre culture de paix et de notre identité légendaire de peuple hospitalier. C'est ainsi que dès le 20 juin 2022, j'ai pris part aux travaux du 3e conclave des chefs d'État membres de la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est à Nairobi, au Kenya, qui avait comme agenda l'examen de la situation sécuritaire dans l'Est de notre pays. À l'issue de ce forum, les dirigeants des pays membres de la communauté d'Afrique de l'Est sont tombés d'accord sur le déploiement d'une force régionale pour imposer la paix dans l'Est de la République démocratique du Congo. Le sommet a appelé à une cessation immédiate de toutes les hostilités à l'Est de notre pays et a demandé à tous les groupes armés, tant étrangers que locaux, à déposer les armes immédiatement et sans condition et à s'engager dans le processus politique. Le 6 juillet 2022, j'ai accepté de rencontrer à nouveau le président du Rwanda, cette fois à Luanda, sous l'égide du président João Lourenço, sous couvert de la conférence internationale des régions des Grands Lacs africains, la CIRGL. Il en est sorti une feuille de route qui stipule entre autres objectifs normaliser les relations politiques et diplomatiques entre la République démocratique du Congo et le Rwanda. Et pour y parvenir, la première action retenue, arrêt des hostilités et retrait du M23 des positions occupées conformément au communiqué final de Nairobi. Une fois de plus, aucune avancée sur le terrain de la paix attendue par notre population n'a été observée. La dernière activité diplomatique en date a été la rencontre avec le président Paul Kagame autour du président français Emmanuel Macron et à l'initiative de ce dernier en marge de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies à New York. Ici également, pour l'essentiel, il a été acté le principe d'un cessez-le-feu immédiat et du retrait inconditionnel du M23 des positions qu'il occupe, toujours sans résultat tangible sur le terrain. Mes chers compatriotes, comme vous pouvez le constater, malgré notre investissement et les efforts fournis dans cette optique, la paix et la sécurité ne sont pas au rendez-vous. Garant de l'indépendance, de l'unité nationale et de l'intégrité territoriale, je réitère mon engagement constitutionnel de défendre la patrie jusqu'au sacrifice suprême. Mes très chers compatriotes, ne doutons jamais qu'ensemble réfléchis et engagés, nous puissions changer le monde. À vous, nos vaillants soldats, vous qui avez pris l'engagement de servir sous le drapeau, je vous invite ici au sens élevé du patriotisme en ce temps particulièrement exceptionnel de notre histoire, de défendre notre pays, de protéger l'intégrité de son territoire et d'assurer la sécurité des Congolaises et des Congolais contre toute agression ou attaque d'où qu'elle vienne. À vous, mes très chers compatriotes, la guerre qui nous est imposée par nos voisins exige de chacun de nous des sacrifices. C'est le moment de taire nos divergences politiques pour défendre tous rassemblés notre mère patrie. Notre histoire et notre marche commune ont sans cesse démontré que, loin de s'effondrer, notre nation et son peuple ont toujours relevé ce genre de défi, et nous en sommes toujours sortis victorieux. Restons tous unis et solidaires derrière nos forces de défense et de sécurité. La situation actuelle, loin de nous affecter, n'est qu'une épreuve de plus que nous allons surmonter pour raffermir davantage notre unité. Au-delà de tout clivage politique, idéologique, religieux et tribal, la défense de la mère patrie est le seul objectif qui doit nous unir en ce moment. Le pays nous appelle. La nation a besoin de l'engagement de toutes ses filles et de tous ses fils. Je vous appelle à ne pas céder.
I now give the floor to the representative of South Africa.
Mr. President, thank you for convening a second meeting within just a few days. Remains dangerously fluid as M23 continues its offensive campaign in North and South Kivu. We thank the Deputy Special Representative, Ms. Vivian van der Peer, for her briefing. And again, we wish to recognize the presence of Minister Therese Kayikwamba-Wagner in the chamber. Since the last meeting of the Council on the situation in the Eastern DRC, 4 additional South African peacekeepers lost their lives in the continuing conflict in Goma. On 27th January 2025, M23 launched several mortar bombs aimed at Goma Airport, which landed in the base of the South African troops, killing 3 soldiers and injuring some troops. A 4th soldier, as Minister said earlier, succumbed to his injuries sustained during the weekend attacks. This illustrates that the M23 is well-resourced and would have acquired such resources through means that are against the sanctions imposed by this Council. It is a contradiction in terms that a major UN peacekeeping troop contributing country could provide resources to an illegal armed group that is conducting offensives against peacekeepers, civilians, and key infrastructure, thereby undermining the mandate of this Council. That must be addressed with utmost urgency. As we stated at the last meeting of the Council a few days ago, the future of UN peacekeeping and its credibility is at stake if we are to tolerate such violations without any ramifications. The Security Council must speak with one voice and act in unison to stop the carnage unfolding in the Eastern DRC. Unfortunately, a press statement of the Security Council, while sending an important political message, has proven to be insufficient in the current situation. Consequently, South Africa would like to highlight the following issues. Firstly, the UN needs to, as a matter of urgency, provide additional support to MONUSCO in order to reinforce operational positions. This is to ensure that MONUSCO can fulfill its primary mandate to protect civilians. This support will also assist to ensure that no further peacekeepers' lives are lost. Similarly, a stronger consideration must be made to bolster the support that MONUSCO provides to the South African Development Community mission in the DRC, SAMI DRC. Both missions, have the primary responsibility of protecting civilians and key civilian infrastructure. They are instrumental as long as armed groups remain active in the Eastern DRC. Secondly, we remain concerned about the worsening humanitarian situation with millions of people in need of humanitarian assistance. There is a need to ensure that appropriate conditions are created for humanitarian aid to reach people in need across Eastern DRC. All parties to the conflict must uphold international humanitarian law and human rights law. Thirdly, we reiterate our call for the resumption of negotiations under the Luanda process. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa held a telephone call with President Kagame of Rwanda yesterday to discuss recent developments in the Eastern DRC and the escalation in fighting that has resulted in the deaths of many peacekeepers, including South Africans. The two heads of states agreed on the urgent need for a ceasefire and the resumption of the talks by all parties to the conflict. Accordingly, South Africa recognizes the significant strides made by President João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço of Angola in facilitating peaceful resolution of the tensions between the DRC and Rwanda. We urge parties to recommit to these talks and address all outstanding issues amicably to allow the region to return to peace and the restoration of the political rapprochement and good neighborliness. This includes both sides addressing their relations with illegal armed groups and the withdrawal of the Rwanda Defense Forces from the DRC. We thus look forward to the much-anticipated East African Community Extraordinary Summit likely to take place in the coming days, with the participation of both President Tshisekedi and President Kagame. Lastly, the Council needs to underline the importance of preventative measures to avoid the recurrence of the cyclical conflict in the Eastern DRC. It is well known that the genesis of this conflict is primarily the illegal exploitation of the Congolese natural resources. International and regional efforts, including those initiated by the International Conference on the Great Lakes region to address the problem of the resource curse in the region, must be operationalized and supported. As I conclude, Mr. President, I wish to remind Council members that South Africa has suffered many casualties in this conflict. The reason we never hesitate in supporting peace efforts, even at excessive cost, is because we are a product of international solidarity at whose center was the United Nations. Therefore, the ultimate sacrifice of South African peacekeepers in the promoting peace and security in the Great Lakes region should not be in vain. Our plea is for this Council to always protect those who value, safeguard, and execute the mandates adopted in this chamber, and also hold into account those who violate the decisions of this very Council. Failure to do so can only undermine the credibility of and delegitimize the authority of this Council and the United Nations as a whole. We trust that all members of this Council and the international community can support measures towards establishing a ceasefire, encouraging dialogue, and promoting efforts towards peace and stability in the whole country and the Eastern DRC in particular. Thank you.
I thank the representative of South Africa for this statement. I now give the floor.
Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, the economy, and increasing power.
Mr. President, thank you for the floor. Members of the Council, first of all, I would like to note that for the first time in our meetings, Rwanda did extend condolences for the fallen peacekeepers. However, I would like to rectify something. The peacekeepers did not die in a process. The peacekeepers were killed. Second of all, SADC forces deployment through SAMI DRC were not deployed unilaterally by the DRC, but rather with a mandate from the AU, an organization Rwanda is a part of, even if its behavior in the DRC clearly flaunts its principles. Third, the M23 excluded itself from the Nairobi process by renewing attacks against the FARDC. The government of the DRC has nonetheless expressed its willingness to re-include the M23 in the Nairobi process. We reject Rwanda's obsession and attempts to elevate the M23 to the level of an interlocutor deemed fit to sit at the same table as a legitimate government. 30 years down the line, we have never stooped to the level of expecting and demanding from Rwanda to talk to its brothers and sisters, the FDLR, who are still in our country. We have not stooped to that level. Fourth, on regime change, we will remind the Rwandan delegation that the M23 and the AFC has repeatedly expressed its intent to march in Kinshasa, the very M23 Rwanda forces are backing right now. There is a subtlety that should not go amiss between words and actions. Rwanda's actions, side by side with the M23, are actions seeking to overthrow a legitimately established government. On the Luanda and Nairobi processes, we will remind the Rwandan representative that the DRC never left the negotiating table. It was Rwanda that did not show up on the 15th. It was Rwanda that did not come when President Lorenzo invited us. And President Kenyatta was also present. President Tshisekedi honored his commitment. In the past weeks, we have seen efforts, calls from this council, from our partners, from our friends, urging us all to renew our efforts within the Luanda process. The DRC never left the table. It is up to Rwanda to come back to the table. I would also like to remind the Council that in this very session, the government of the DRC, through my own statement, condemned all attacks against diplomatic missions in the DRC. We do this in our concern to abide by and respect international law. However, we have yet to hear Rwanda explain to us what its efforts have been to abide by international law and to respond to the violations it has been found guilty of in the DRC. Violations of the Charter, violations of international humanitarian law, violations of international human rights law. Members of the Council, I would like to close with what has brought us back here in less than 48 hours. Rwanda's outright contempt for this Council and its declaration that it will not, for the Council and the Council's declaration, and its demonstration that it is in the deluded belief that there is a Rwandan exception when it comes to international law. But what has also brought us here is the Council's choice 2 days ago to opt for words and not for actions. This Council is not unable to take actions. In fact, it is uniquely equipped to take actions. Hence, the question that remains at the end of this meeting is whether this Council is unwilling to act. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency Ms. Kaikwamba Wagner for her statement. And I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Господин председатель,
Mr. President,
благодарим
we'd
заместителя
like to thank the
спецпредставителя
Deputy
Генерального
Special
секретаря
Representative of the
Vivian
Secretary General,
van der Peer
Vivian
за
van der Peer, for her briefing.
Приветствуем
We
участие в заседании
welcome
министра
to
иностранных
the
дел
meeting the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Teresa Vanga, and the representative of the other countries who've requested the floor under Rule 37. Distinguished colleagues, 2 days ago we met in this chamber and discussed the worrisome developments in the situation in the eastern DRC. Over the past 48 hours, the situation has significantly deteriorated, especially with the seizure of Goma, where there are more than 1 million civilians located. Russia firmly condemns the actions of M23. We call for a swift cessation of hostilities and a withdrawal of the rebels of the illegal armed formation from the towns, villages and territory they have seized. We also urge external forces to cease their support for M23 and to recall their military units. There's a need without delay to resume the negotiation process in Luanda. We must not allow a spillover of the escalation which could threaten the lives of people on both sides of the border and is likely to turn into an interstate conflict on a regional scale. We are seriously concerned by the humanitarian repercussions of what's going on. In front of our very eyes, the already difficult situation in North Kivu is turning into an utter humanitarian disaster. Goma de facto is cut off from the outside world. This may have serious consequences for the inhabitants of the town and the IDPs who have fled there. Once again, we would like to express our condolences to the families of the civilian victims of the DRC, the UN peacekeepers, and the fallen SADC soldiers. We stand in solidarity with the governments of the DRC and those states who've lost their service personnel. We wish their speedy recovery. We'd like to underscore that Russia unequivocally condemns the attacks on peacekeepers. It's absolutely unacceptable. We firmly support the UN peacekeeping mission in the stabilization mission in the DRC, its leadership and the Blue Helmets. We also condemn any attacks and acts of aggression regarding international diplomatic representation. Such actions have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with peaceful demonstrations. We urge Kinshasa to ensure the protection of foreign missions and diplomatic staff, pursuant to the Vienna Convention and its international obligations. The violence in eastern DRC needs to stop. However, there's no military path to resolve this crisis. It is absolutely clear that this is only possible as a result of political agreements. We're convinced that the Luanda process remains the best forum where agreements can be reached. We carefully listened to the representative of Angola during the meeting of the Council on Sunday. Angola clearly stated that the only obstacle to preventing a signature of a reconciliation document between Kinshasa and Kigali was the issue of cessation of government interaction with the illegal armed formations, and primarily with the M23. Without settling the status of this group as part of the intra-Congolese dialogue, any attempts to improve the situation between the DRC and Rwanda will not bear lasting fruit. Here, there is an urgent need for the resumption of the Nairobi process and the pushing forward of similar regional initiatives. There's no alternative to this. Mr. President, attempts to settle the crisis will also not bear fruit if the countries of the Great Lakes region do not take decisive measures to combat the illegal exploitation and smuggling of natural resources, the lion's share of which, as we all know, come from the eastern DRC, which is beset by instability. There's a need for extra-regional players and large transnational corporations to review their relations relationship with the use of these resources, because in their interest there's this ongoing illegal supply of blood minerals. These states have all instruments available to them to stop the hot phase, so to speak, of the conflict and to exert pressure on the parties so they return to negotiations. They must be harnessed to protect people's lives and to stop the suffering of hundreds of thousands of civilians. Unfortunately, we've all seen that the statement of the Council has not stopped the M23, and those who support this group from seizing Goma and continuing their hostilities. Russia, from its side, will do everything possible, including through here in the Council, to stop the escalation and to restore prospects for diplomatic settlement in the interest of stabilizing the situation in the Eastern DRC. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for the statement.
We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, the economy, and increasing power. Thank you.
Bana Afrique du Sud, balobi bana na nzambe nyonso bisika bozali, événement eza moko, balobi le 6 avril eza moto, le 6 avril eza moto, balobi moto na nzambe ezokita na Cape Town le 6 avril, bana na nzambe nyonso, boya tokutana le 6 avril awa na Weinberg, tokutana na Weinberg esika wapi, honorable évangéliste Blaise Nzinga na Shilo Gospel Music International. Wana tozala live concert oyo ekobetama wana bana na nzambe bozanga te, bana ya Cape Town bozanga te, bana Félix Mobimba partout sika bozali bozanga te. Événement eza munene, tozobelela moto na nzambe, balobi moto na nzambe ezokende kokita kotumba misala nyonso ya satana, ezokende kotumba bandoki nyonso bazobundisa mboka na biso Congo, ezotumba bakongole nyonso bazobundisa bandeko na bango, ezotumba bayini na biso nyonso, balobi boya mokolo wana tobelela moto na nzambe, tobelela moto na nzambe, kozanga te ndeko, bongisa mwana, bongisa papa, benga voisin, benga cousine, benga ndeko na yo, loba na bango toza le 6 avril biso nyonso na Wembeck na 129 Main Road Wembeck. Wapi référence ezali spa, balobi eza place ya kobunga te, soko komi kaka na Wembeck pemene ya Pick n Pay na robot wana, spa eza wana, okoti omati likolo. Concert ekozala wana na église ya pasteur na biso Moses oyo abengi na Glory Reign Ministry. Glory Reign Ministry eza na Wembeck 129 Main Road na Wembeck. Balobi bozanga te, place au post office ezalaka kala, mata likolo kuna place ya ba réfugiés ezalaka wana, okomona salle eza wana, parking ya kitoko eza wana. Yaka boya tokumisa nzambe elongo na frère Blaise Nzinga oyo abengi évangéliste honorable, yoka ye moko bakombo ebele, balobi boya tosepele longo, boya tokumisa nzambe longo na banzembo kitoko neti ba Golgotha, na banzembo kitoko na pamba bongo pona bana babi bana ezala kaka 50 reines ba o déjà ba pusani à partir ba 16 ans matiti likolo balobi bango ezala kaka 50 reines bana oya mike bango ba kokotala bango free boya ebele le 6 avril balobi babengaka yango Wembeck c'est Paris, bango babenga yango Wembeck c'est Paris. Donc biso nyonso boya tokutana na Wembeck c'est Paris na 129 Main Road Wembeck na Glory Reign Ministry et pas na biso Moses Papa Blaise Nzinga na Shilo Gospel Music bakozala wana boya tokomisa nzambe longo toyoka musique.
Elekeli bo moto na ngai, elekeli pe mayele na ngai, nandima wapi Yesu yo, esika loboko na yo ezangi kozwa ngai. Yolo na nga fololo, nakatela nga na yo, simba nga loboko, Jésus mon amour, noki na kweya bamba ngawa yo. Bolingo makasi na nkolo. Okay. Obina kawabie. Hira. 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 Woo! Maboko, maboko, maboko. Balobi mokili eza compliqué.